Hello, family and friends. This is Constance Adams coming to you with a big Christmas box in the back of my car. But wanted to add a little bit more to part two to the I'm a Survivor video. And what many people don't know, because most people don't brag about their atrocities or abuses, but when I was married, I ended up a victim of domestic violence or domestic abuse. Now, what people don't really understand is it's not something that people start out doing. You don't start out hitting a person. You don't start out kicking a person. How it starts is very subtly. And what it does is they're words that whittle away at your being to make you feel small, insignificant, unimportant. And when a person says that to you long enough, in my case, I began to believe it. I began to believe the words of my abuser that I wasn't anything, would never amount to anything. I should be glad, that I'm was selected by him and as a wife or whatever. And then it goes into, once it gets into your head and you begin to lose sense of your self-worth, then it becomes easier for an individual to abuse you, whether it's a male or female, whether it's homosexual, heterosexual, whatever you want to call it. Abuse is abuse. But what I want us to understand is it never starts out with a fist or a open hand slap or a kick. I can remember one time when I was married and we were at my ex-husband's parents' home, and my babies were Brandon and Brian, my twins were babies, and I asked him to unscrew the top on the bottle, and he refused. He tried to do it, but I guess it was so tight, he couldn't get it off. And so he said something really ugly to me, and I snatched the bottles. And before I knew anything, he hauled off and kicked me in my leg. His family was sitting there, and all I could hear was from his family in the background. Nobody said anything to him. Nobody checked him. Nobody said, "What are you doing?" Nobody said anything except and what I remember after that was being in the kitchen. I completely blacked everything else out. When I came to myself, I was in the kitchen washing the baby's bottles out. So for a brief moment or few moments, I completely blacked out. Now, what happened, I can't tell you, but apparently my brain went into a sense of protection so that I wouldn't lose it. And when I left, I told him, take me and my children home. When I got to the apartment, the only thing I could think of is, how did I get here? How did this man come from quote unquote loving me to feeling that it's okay to abuse me? But what was more devastating is that his family didn't say a word. Nobody said a mumbling word. Nobody came to my defense. Nobody came to my rescue. And so at that time, I felt like this is some kind of normal. It's certainly not my normal. But for nobody to say anything left me even more hurt or mentally abused than the actual kick itself. What I'm saying is simply this. Whenever, and I'm saying this to folks who might be dealing with just the folks, now I'm not the just, because I'm not diminishing it, but you might be dealing with someone calling you out of your name or criticizing you on a regular basis or making you feel like you no longer matter in the relationship. What I will say to you is this. It won't be long before there's a shove, there's a push, there's a hit, there's a slap, there's a punch, there's a kick. And then it goes from there. So what I'm saying to you is this. If you have experienced any of the name calling and making you feel small and making you feel like you no longer have a value or self-worth, this is the time now to really evaluate. Is this a situation that you want to stay in? Because I'm going to say this to you. It never gets better. It only gets worse. So for those of you who are going through these things, what I would say to you is reevaluate your relationship. Reevaluate your situation. Perhaps the two of you, if you're married, need to go to counseling. If you're not married, don't get married. If you're not married to a person who's already abusing you emotionally, mentally, and or physically, that situation will only get worse. Get out before it's too late. Get out before you find yourself in a situation where then you have children and you have a whole nother component then to deal with. From a person who had experienced it firsthand and tried to figure out, I'd never seen abuse in my family, had never seen it. But for someone who had never seen that, to having to actually go through it, I said, I never thought it would be me. And guess what? It was. So what I'll say today is protect your heart and your mind. You don't have to look for a red flag or the pink smoke. The first name call, the first put down is the indication that this is a person's pattern of behavior and it will not get any better without help. And sometimes, even with help, people have to make choices and everybody's not willing to change. So again, take heart, reevaluate your situation, but more importantly, understand it goes from bad to worse. This is Constance Adams coming to you with part 2, and there are going to be several parts to this. I'm exposing all of the vulnerable things, all of the traumatic things that have happened in my life so that you do not have to either go through it or remain in it. There's a way out, and you can survive it. I did. This is Constance Adams coming to you live with a Constance Conversation. Live life on purpose, be intentional, and have a blessed and stress-free day.